This video is entitled How Not to Debate. Okay? And this video is going to go out to Andrew Wyatt and a username of SDETTDEWSF. Okay? And the first thing I'm going to say is that I know that a lot of people ask me this question. The question is, why do I sound so loud in my videos? Well, I work in a photo lab 35 hours a week, and the machines are quite noisy. Furthermore, I have an air conditioner in the back. And for those of you who have watched my videos in the wintertime, you know I have a heater in the back. And the microphone on my digital camera is not very sensitive. You also have to keep in mind that when I go out in the field, as in when I videotape the Decatur Celebration Razzle Dazzle Good Time Parade, the Labor Day Parade, and when I do my Looking for Lincoln signs, there's the microphone. You see the problem? So I've just naturally adapted a louder voice so that I make sure that everybody can hear me effectively. So, that explains all that. Now we can move on to the more finer points. All right. My response to Andrew Wyatt is this. He says, unfortunately, the schools today hardly carry any emphasis on grammar. I agree with you. With as many comments that have come into my YouTube channel, and they are so poorly formatted in grammar, I wonder if anybody teaches grammar correctly anymore. It sounds like this kid or person you are talking about is clearly undereducated. I couldn't agree more. This may or may not be his fault. Well, I'm sure as he responds to my videos like this, and I'm sure as he responds more and more, we'll learn more about him. Or at least I hope we'll learn more about him. Anyway. However, if you're going to start an argument with someone on the more educated side, you should make sure you get your facts straight. I agree with you. Fact number one. Even in my original critique of Jeff Bliss, I never said that I agreed with his teacher. Quite the contrary. I don't agree with his teacher. Absolutely despise her teaching methods. But Jeff Bliss did not have the credentials on his own to make an effective case. And bear with me, I'm getting extremely parched. Alright. I do mostly agree with you to an extent. I personally feel like the teacher was just a bit at fault. No, she was very much at fault. Had she taught a little differently, that probably wouldn't have happened. I think there are other ways Jeff could have approached this as well. I agree. Had he quoted that teacher, like I presented in my video High School Packets Part 1, and he had quoted that teacher in a school board meeting, he would have been much more effective than what he did. Jeff Bliss didn't act appropriately. I agree. He had a case in my opinion, which I agree with, but he could have approached the situation another way. Again, I agree. You at no point should interrupt a classroom at any given time. I agree. In some states, interrupting a classroom is a crime. Yes, it's disturbing the peace and inciting a riot. I agree. I have experienced teachers that just want their paychecks and vacations. I have too. If that teacher was a true teacher, she would have asked to speak with each student privately. No, if she had been a true teacher, she would have been more engaging like what I am here on YouTube. And this wouldn't have happened in the first place. It's their education, not hers, on the line. I agree. Her job is to prepare her students for the real world, which again, I agree, and that's what I try to do here on YouTube as well. Matter of fact, that's why I'm making this video for my students, to show them how to properly debate in the ways of showing how this other YouTuber did a very poor job of debating. Okay. Now let's get to the other YouTuber, because he sent me a personal message. Now before we begin, there is such a thing called an acronym. And when you're dealing with the Joint Photographic Experts Group, if you take the letters JPG and you put them together, or JPEG, you have what is called an acronym. This is the same thing with GIF. This is the same thing with CPU. This is the same thing with RAM. Okay? I know there's a RAM truck, and I know that there's a type of sheep called a RAM, but when you're talking about random access memory, it's none of those things. RAM is an acronym. Okay? It's just like BASIC, beginners, all-purpose, symbolic, instruction code. All that is an acronym. Okay? So let's start that way. Now let me read this kid's response to me, slowly. I had a long response, but unfortunately I closed the tab before I sent, so I will keep this short. He's already destroyed his credibility. Very poor grammar, that's the first problem. Secondly, this is a whine. Oh, I closed the tab before I was done. That's a whine. You never whine when you're debating somebody. I'm sorry that you lost your commentary. But if I had been you, the first thing I would have done is use something like Notepad. Okay? Now you say, well, I run a MacBook. I don't have Notepad. There is a similar program on MacBooks to Notepad as there is on Microsoft and the real Notepad. If you don't believe me, you can check it out for yourself. I have friends that own MacBooks. Okay? So I am very familiar with MacBooks. Just because I don't like them doesn't mean that I'm not familiar with them. Big difference. Now, there is such a thing on Microsoft computers called a clipboard. What you do is you copy and paste your text to that clipboard and then ship it to the next thing. You can ship something from Notepad to Microsoft Word, or you can ship things like Notepad to an email. You could have made a full-blown presentation with notes like this, cut and paste that from Notepad and placed it in the YouTube email before sending it to me. So, first mistake, no whining. Second mistake, no bad grammar. Because you end up discrediting yourself. And you make yourself look like a fool. Hence the laughter. That was ridicule. And if you keep doing things like this, you're going to experience a lot more ridicule. I'm sorry, but that's the way it's going to be. First, the comments are for the purpose of communication. The purpose of communication is to convey a message. Now, if you had stopped your sentence right there, I would have agreed with you. Finally, you made a valid point. But you ruined your valid point because you made a run-on sentence. Now, for those of us who don't seem to know what a run-on sentence is, that's when you take two independent sentences and you cram them together in an incorrect grammatical way. And that's exactly what you've done here, because I'm going to read the rest of your run-on sentence. And instead of focusing on the message, you chose to focus on grammar in a comment obviously written in the heat of the previous comment. First of all, you misspelled the word you. You want me to take you seriously, but you misspelled. Okay? Ever heard of a character limit in comments? Well, my defense to that is, have you ever heard of Notepad? Do you ever write anything down like I just did? How about this? Why don't you make a video response like I'm doing right now? You know what the advantages of a video response are? You can see the demeanor of my face. You can hear the tone of my voice. You can see how I'm conveying the message. Those are very big time advantages when trying to make a presentation like this. An oral presentation can have a very astounding effect. So, let's go on. It exits, and when people run out of characters, they take away from spaces. As if anybody's going to understand what you just said. I am sure your high school, and look at this, high school is put together, smashed together. No, it's high space school. There is no such thing as a high school. There is no one single word called high school. It don't work that way. Would be proud after seeing you commit the most popular fallacy in arguments. Like anybody understands what you just said. But then you get worse at this. You've already got a flawed argument, and now you're going to attempt to save face. What you're going to do, okay, is you're going to use Latin etymology. You see where I'm going with all this? After a while, I'm about ready to just throw this out the window and say, forget it. But to make the point crystal clear, which I know I have a stuttering problem, and let me start right there. I know you're going to jump in. Well, you have a stuttering problem. Okay, I do. Stuttering problems are a little harder to overcome than grammatical fixing. You can fix grammar. Stuttering problems, little different story. Okay, so I know I had to stop my argument there to address that, because I know that's the first thing you were thinking in your mind, and I wanted to stop that, right? I just wanted to nip it in the bud. But you cannot use a desperate move of using Latin etymology to try to save face in your argument. It doesn't work that way. You've already discredited yourself. Now you're becoming desperate. Let me read this to you. Argumentatum ad hominem. Yes, I am very familiar with Latin etymology. Surprise. Or in this case, argumentatum ad grammaticum. Made up word to make a point. Okay, I don't have to make up words to make a point. Have I made a single word up so far to make any of my points? Nope. That's a desperate move. Never do that in a debate. Okay? And you say, so are all words actually. Can you prove that in a Euclidean proof? I don't think so. Love to see you try. I will just skip to the point here because I have already accidentally lost the previous message due to a misclick. Another whine. Never whine like this when you're trying to make a presentation. If you put arbitrary barrier of credentials on a critique, you will not just be an elitist, again, using this fancy vocabulary. Like your audience knows words like this. So now your audience is picking up their smartphones trying to look up what an elitist is. Well, let me save you the trouble. An elitist is a person that becomes a part of a very exclusive group, and then that exclusive group thinks that they're superior to everybody else because they're a part of an elitist group. Okay. Just because I have more intelligence than you does not necessarily mean that I'm better than you. And I addressed that in some previous videos. But of course you never took the time to watch any of my videos. Much less all of them. Maybe if you had, you would have presented a much better case. Hang on just a second. You can get parched pretty quickly from an argument like this, I can tell you. Okay, but also you will be missing important interdisciplinary input. Don't use $50 words like that to try to save face. It doesn't work and it makes you look like a fool. Are we learning something, students, here? I hope so. I am no athlete, but I know kinematics. Kinematics. Again, before you guys all flip out your smartphones, kinematics is a term describing motion of points. Now, let me give you an illustration. This would be like describing how the motion of the planets that surround our sun is affected by the sun's gravitational pull. Or how about the motion of one planet, having an effect on the motion of another planet, or an asteroid, or a comet. In the case of track and field, it would be the motion of the knee affecting how well the runner runs. Okay, but I know kinematics and statistics, not statics. S-T-A-T-I-C, hang on, let me make sure of this. I always want to make sure that I'm spelling this right. Okay, it's S-T-A-T-I-S-T-I-C-S. That's statistics. Okay? Bear with me, I'm a little exhausted, so I'm not always infallible. As I said, just because I'm smarter than somebody doesn't make me any better. Sometimes I get tired and I have to catch myself. Okay? Alright. And even though I never ran, I can suggest that runner to run at a slight angle. No, you can't. Because you're not factoring in all the conditions. What conditions do you have to factor in when you're talking about a runner in track and field? Okay? Track conditions. Compare a high school track to one at the Olympic Stadium. They're very different. The health of the runner. Does he have vision problems? Does he have knee problems? Does he have leg problems? Is he missing arch bones? The weather conditions. Is the track wet? Is it so blazing hot that the guy is now suffering heat stroke? What kind of training has he received, and who did he receive training from? Shoot, even the runner's shoes could affect his performance. If he wears this pair of shoes, he runs better. If he wears this pair of shoes, he doesn't run as well. Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you here? That was a very poor argument. Okay. If he obviously wasn't doing that for better performance, which would benefit the runner? Not necessarily, because you didn't factor everything in. I may not have done it, but using my reasoning and other means, I can know it. No, you got to get facts and information. That's how you know it. Which is when you read paragraph 3 of the link you posted, you can see clearly if it suits your grammatical fancy, which it did. Apparently it didn't suit yours, and you didn't pay very good attention. Point is, well, my point to you is, this is a very poor argument. You've already discredited yourself 6 or 7 times. But you just keep right on doing it. One of the biggest things is you say you're presenting a short argument. Look at this. We're already at paragraph 3. 3 of 4. Okay? So that's another discredit to you. Point is, truth is still truth no matter if it is said by a king or a slave. Who are you going to believe? A king or a slave? If the slave is a prisoner of war, are you going to believe him? If he's somebody that's gotten himself in massive debt, if he doesn't have enough economic sense to keep himself out of debt, what makes you think he has any other sense whatsoever? The king has much greater credibility. Simple as that. Okay? Which is why anyone can do science and contribute to society, because only credentials they need are logical arguments and proofs. Really? Are you kidding me? So you want to hand a car mechanic a chemistry set and see what he'll do with it? I don't think so. Do you really want a street sweeper to explain physics to you? He better be more than a street sweeper before he starts explaining physics to you. Very poor argument. Okay. Also, you didn't answer who will decide what credentials is enough to make a critique. People who have those kind of credentials decide who they are and are not going to listen to. And they can also recommend to other people who they should and should not listen to. Ta-da! Making YouTube videos certainly has not earned anyone a professor title. However, it gives us an opportunity to demonstrate our credentials. Watching my videos, you can see that I can actually build a computer. I demonstrated this from front to back. I have clearly demonstrated after 80 videos that I can speak, read, and write Italian, that I know much of what's in the healthcare bill, which I know is now a law. That's what YouTube can do for me. So, there you go. If for no other reason, YouTube clearly has demonstrated, my videos have clearly demonstrated that I know where 185 looking for Lincoln wayside markers are. There's no doubt of it. I was at all of those places and I videotaped it just to show you that I actually was there. So I know where these signs are. That's what YouTube can do. Alright. Considering even those who have such titles make mistakes, credentials are provably not foolproof method of accepting criticism. Like I said, just because you're smart doesn't make you a better person. Adolf Hitler was smart, but he was certainly not a better person. So on that point, I will give you that one. I agree. This is just the sum of my previous arguments. Oh, thank heavens. I don't think I could take much more. So if you wish, I could expand on them later. Notice on how I provided argument. You haven't provided anything except excuses and very poorly formatted arguments. I've debunked just about everything you said and completely destroyed your credibility to boot. Against your arguments instead of insulting without any thought or doubt. But that wasn't the end of you, oh no. Then you write this. I really hoped I would get some kind of argumentative response. This proves you're impatient, which is another thing you should never be in a proper debate. That's why I took the time to make this video. Comment was obviously written in the heat of the moment, which should never be done. And the point was so simple that I don't bother with the grammar. Mostly do character limit in comments. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. I think even the most illiterate of my students can figure out just how bad your comments were. I gave my short response in PM, which I just talked about earlier in this video, but I will say this. Argumentatum ad hominem is not an argument. Again, relying on Latin etymology to save face. Wrong. Insulting person you are arguing over grammar is just pathetic. No, it's accurate. So is your elitism. I'm not an elite. Okay? I'm just a good teacher. Didn't get the point? Ask for it to be elaborated instead of being an angry YouTube kid. No, I'm not an angry YouTube kid. I am a level 1 data processor. And that title says that I'm smart enough to argue these points with you. The end. So one more time I'm going to tell you, before you come back here and argue any more points with me, proofread, go to grammar school, get yourself a good education, and come up with sound arguments. Listen, I got all the time in the world. I'll be happy to await your response. Now, for the rest of my students, I say this. Do you finally see all the flaws in his arguments? Do you understand why I say he's a very poor debater? He needs to be in a debate club and learn how to debate effectively. And the thing is, I've never been in a debate club, and look at me, I've done an incredible job. I may not have been in a debate club, but I do have a solid education to back me up. In the story. Alright. The last thing I will say is that in a debate, the last thing you would want to do is try to start babbling. And if I continue this video any further, that's exactly what I'm going to end up doing, and that's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to babble. So, I'm going to cut this short, tell you guys to have a great evening. I will tell you more in a future video. Stay tuned.